question for you. What was the first thing that went through your head when you took one look at me? Actually, you don't have to answer that because I can read your mind. Usually, the first thing that people think to themselves when they look at me is, my goodness, she looks like Sharon Stone. Because that's obviously the first thing that strikes you about me, right? Where's my clicker? Thank you. No, look, I know I look more like Sharon Stone's mini-me, and I'm totally okay with that now, but there was a time when I went to my doctor a while back and I said to her, hey doc, have you got anything you can give me to make me a bit taller? So she wrote me a prescription for stilettos. For some reason the chemist wouldn't fill it. I can't imagine why. But you can imagine that being as tiny as I am, a few things are quite difficult. Like, for example, grocery shopping. Total nightmare for me because I could never reach anything. But now I've got it covered. I've combined it with a great new fitness program, indoor rock climbing. Really works for me, but for some reason the Coles staff get really cheesed off, probably because they've got to clean up the avalanche after me. You know, in my line of work, very often I speak with people on the phone before I actually meet them in person. Now, on the phone, I sound really tall. So I can see people doing this mental double take when they actually see me. It's like, because they're expecting to meet Elle Macpherson and they get Danny DeVito in drag. So it's a real shock to the system. But the reason I share that with you is because being the shortest person in the room is probably the only thing in my life that is not going to change. Because everything else in my life is in a constant state of flux and change. Is that like your life as well? Absolutely. Because we live in a world of exponential change. Exponential change. And we've been hearing about some of that change from Andrew already. Now, so much so that by the year 2020, technical knowledge is going to be doubling at the rate of about every 73 days. 73 days. Good heavens. And then I thought to myself, how do they work that out? How does someone come up with that piece of information? Where is that written anywhere? So I did some sleuthing and I went back and I did a bit of research about this, and apparently technological development has been on an exponential growth curve since the invention of the wheel. Forever. This is entirely consistent with what has always been the case. Now, it's the rate of change that we're talking about, and what happens when you plot an exponential curve on a logarithmic graph that's designed to show rate of change. Where are our ex-maths teachers or current maths teachers? I'm an ex-maths teacher. Right? What do you get when you plot plot it on a logarithmic graph? Anyone want to hazard a guess? Thank you. Yes, exactly. You get a straight line. Thank you. Who said that? Tick. Okay, well done. Now, straight lines are wonderfully predictive. So that's how come we know what the rate of change is going to be in 2020. Now, if we wanted to just extrapolate that a little bit and take it out to the end of the century, 2099, it means that we won't just have gone through 100 years of technological development over the course of this century. It will be the equivalent of something like 20,000 years of technological development. Do you know what human beings were doing 20,000 years ago? Cro-Magnon man was hunting wildebeest with spears during the last ice age. So that means that my grandchildren, your grandchildren, at the end of this century, are going to be as far removed from us as we are from Cro-Magnon man with spears. So who's got the latest in technology? Andrew, I know you've got the absolute cutting edge of everything right now. That is going to look like a spear to your great-grandkids. Now, that's a scary thought. Absolutely. So we live in a world of exponential change. That's not going to change. It's just going to get faster and faster. Okay. Just change direction for a moment. Anyone here go to Brisbane State High School at some stage in their life? Put your hands up, all your ex-State High people. Yay! Okay, so you'll be able to answer this question because indeed I went to Brisbane State High School. I'm an ex-State High girl. So this is my old stomping ground, except of course this wasn't here when I was in school, just around the corner over there. Our school motto is Scientia e potestas. Scientia e potestas. All right. The people in the room who went to State High should be able to tell me what that means. Translated, please, down the back. Thank you. Knowledge is power. Well done. It's a very, very old saying. It grew out of a time when knowledge was hard to come by. And Andrew alluded to this in his talk as well. You see, once upon a time, the only people who had knowledge were the wealthy or the clergy. Knowledge or information, if I can use those two words interchangeably for a moment, was in scarce supply. It was a scarce commodity, and if you had it, you were very fortunate and you had the upper hand, you had the power. Of course, we live in a completely new world order now. Everything's changed because we have unlimited access to information or knowledge, if we can call it that. In fact, there's almost this soup of low-grade information that envelops us all the time that's been referred to by researcher and journalist David Schenck as data smog, because there's so much of it and a lot of it is not particularly high quality. It's interesting to note that when the world was transitioning during the Industrial Revolution, there was also a huge amount of smog being produced from the factories that were belching out the black soot and the smoke. And the famous London fogs were, in fact, the result of all of that. You know, it wasn't a fog, it was a smog. So it's interesting to note that as the world goes through this next revolution, the technological revolution, the information revolution, we're going through a similar kind of process, but we're just producing a different kind of smog. This one, it's information smog, data smog, as he refers to it. And it's all around us, and what's more, it's even delivered to us digitally. We don't even need to be connected to anything anymore. So that's quite scary. So, point being that my old school motto, Scientia e potestas, is completely outdated. I don't think they'd take particularly kindly to me telling them that, but you know. Because just because we have access to information and just because we have a plethora of information around us doesn't necessarily mean we use it as wisely and effectively as we could. Some people do, but it's not a given. So it's not so much just having access to the information or having the information so much as being able to maximize it, synergize it, synthesize it, optimize it, transform it. That's where the power lies, not in just having it. And that, in a word, is innovation. And so I think that my old school should change their motto to Innovatus e potestas. Innovation is power. Innovation is power. Would you agree with that, Andrew? And by the way, Andrew, you blow me away. I was sitting down the back there, and when you were reading out that last email by your student in your biology class who said that she was a lifelong learner, I was nearly misting up. The tears were nearly streaming down my face because I've got a grade 11 biology student at home with me, and I thought I would just give anything to have that attitude instilled in her as well. So every single teacher in Australia needed to see your keynote today. And I just hope that this is going to be broadcast everywhere because it was absolutely amazing, and thank you so much for bringing us that message. And it's very much about innovation. It's about how we use the tools that are at our disposal. You know, they're there, we have access, but unless we innovate with them in meaningful ways, it's useless. So it's innovatus et potestas. Yep, write it down if you're making notes, innovatus et potestas. That is the new motto that Brisbane State High School should adopt, but I don't think I'm going to make that suggestion to them. It may not be well received. Okay, another thing that I noticed that Andrew mentioned was the fact that he thought that we're coming to the end of the knowledge economy. And I would totally agree with that. I think we are now already past the information age. That's already done and dusted. We are now in the innovation age. Because if we look around, it's organisations, systems, businesses, schools, classrooms, communities, individuals, whole countries who are innovating, who are the ones that are winning. And the ones who are not are becoming very irrelevant very quickly. So we are out of the information age, we're already in the innovation age. So we're living in a new world order, it's a new paradigm. What does it look like? So we need to recognise that this new world has new qualities to it, and it also has a new skill set. So what does this new world look like? Well, it's complex. Boy, we certainly got that message this morning. It's a complex world in which we live. It's evolving very rapidly. It's changing around us. It's borderless, as we saw. People in the whole world are downloading your stuff, Andrew, and good for them. I'm going to be doing that as soon as I go home today. It's borderless. People in Alaska are listening to your podcasts. So we live in this incredible new world. So with this new world comes a new skill set that we need. And here are only 3 new skills. Creativity. We're going to be talking a lot about that. I'm coming back to that. Globality, collaboration. Now, the word globality, you probably won't actually find it in the dictionary because I just made it up. Because I just wanted a word that kind of encapsulated the thought that the skill is thinking of ourselves as global citizens, thinking of ourselves as being able to be present sort of mentally and via connectivity anywhere in the world. A sense that we belong to this huge global village and we're not just some little outpost somewhere. So that's a skill, being able to think like that and see ourselves in that way. And collaboration. So if we were to think about how things have moved from the 20th century into the 21st century, I mean, think of all of the differences in what's valued. You know, once upon a time, left brain kind of thinking, you know, the analytical thinking, logical thought, was what was rewarded. And still is. But above and beyond that, now, we need to also be able to use so-called right brain thinking. Okay, I know that there isn't actually, you're familiar that that's actually a metaphor. There's not really left brain and right brain. It's a metaphor to explain different kinds of activities. Okay, but what's valued now in the 21st century is that creativity. And didn't we see some creativity? Teachers are going to have to start getting trained in media production as much as anything else. Because that was what we saw, that wonderful creativity. So it's not just left brain, it's right brain, it's actually whole brain. So what are some of these new approaches, these new criteria that are now marking the 21st century? Could you have a really quick brainstorm at your table and come up with 2 additional things to add to this skill set of creativity, globality, collaboration? Come up with 2 more at each table. What else? Oh, beautiful. Adaptability. So if you excuse me just repeating them because we don't have a microphone. It's actually one of my pet hates to keep saying things that people have said, but under the circumstances, excuse me, yes? Lovely. Connectivity. Yes, agility. Mental agility, I think we're talking, right? Otherwise, I'd be in trouble. Yes?
The ability to see patterns in what seems like chaos.
Yes, wonderful. We're seeing patterns out of chaos. That's part of the complex adaptive systems, I suspect, isn't it, Serge? Yes. What else? Wonderful. Interdisciplinarity. Yes, boundary crossing. Absolutely, I love that word. What else? Any others? Selectivity. Explain.
Well, so much stuff. You have to be able to say what's important, what's not important.
Excellent. All right. Separate the smog from the good stuff. Yes, very good. Yes? Oh, thank you. Imagination. Well done. Any others?
The ability to unlearn.
Yes, yes, so that we can relearn all over again and be lifelong learners. Thank you. Beautiful. What else?
Inclusivity from the point of view of this. You've got to be able to work with everyone.
Yes, yes, collaboration. And that's interesting because 20th century activity tended to emphasise more competition, whereas now we're moving to a much more collaborative way of being. Thank you. What else? Have we run out? Should I move on? Yes. Yes, we had adaptability before, but it's so important, it's worth saying again. Thank you very much. Okay, so... Thank you, yes, absolutely. Now, it's not surprising, therefore, given what you've just said, that IBM found these results. You might be familiar with their global study that was released in 2010 called Capitalising on Complexity. It took them 2 years to gather the data. They interviewed 1,500 leaders from different sectors within the market around the world, from public sector, private sector, education, all over the place. They interviewed people intensely. It was face-to-face interviews. They collated the data into this incredible document called Capitalising on Complexity. If you don't have it, definitely Google it. I think it's still available. They may have taken it off, but if you can't find it easily, just contact me. I'll send it to you. But this was their finding, that creativity is now the single most important leadership competency. Does that actually come as a surprise to anyone? It might have at one stage. Can you imagine 20 years ago that being the case? Today, it's the case. Creativity is the single most important leadership competency. So what does that mean for us? If we need to be creative, and we're in this conundrum, which is that we need to be creative, but increasingly we work in workplaces which are not conducive to creativity. Would you agree with that? We tend to be confronted with this sort of thing. Who would agree that that looks a lot like their work? Okay, right. And when we're in these sorts of contexts, it's very difficult to be and to sustain creativity. Okay, so what can we do about it? Indeed, I have to tell you, it is a very fine balancing act. We need to be able to attend to lots of things simultaneously. In fact, I have a metaphor for this. Now, are you prepared to come on a little bit of a journey with me on this? All right, be a bit brave. So the way we're being challenged and the things that are being asked of us is we're juggling so much stuff, is a little bit like this. So could I have, shall we say, 16 brave volunteers to come out to the front in pairs? Can you all, each pair, can you take a stick? Each pair, take a stick. No, one stick between two. All right, there we go. All right, one stick between two. And that pair over there. This pair over here. Oh, I think we could do with a couple more pairs. Come on, that's it, good. After talking about being still, you're going to be in the heart of activity. There you go. Come over here and work with Andrew. All right. Now, this is the first part of the activity. Just want to make sure you get it really easily, all right? All I'm going to ask you to do is this. So if the people at the front could just sort of stand to the side a little bit, right? With the exception of Andrew. Come over here. Andrew's my new best friend. I'm so impressed, right? Andrew, just put your hand up like that, just for a moment. Right, facing me. Right, this is what each pair is going to do. Right, you're just going to hold the stick between your open palms without grabbing it like this. But this is your challenge. You're going to have to keep the stick in motion and find really creative ways of keeping the stick in motion without dropping it while you do a lap of the room. All right, so you're going to go all the way around the room really quickly without letting the stick drop and without letting it stop moving. Yes, go. Okay, right, go. Round the room, quickly. This is the easy bit. Show us how fast you can do it. Wonderful. Just watch them. Oh, look, up on a chair. What a show off. That's great. Oh, almost lost it. Almost lost it. Okay, that's pretty easy. Who would agree that's pretty easy? Are they doing a good job, everyone? Yes, well done. Well done. Okay, come on back to the front now. You know, we are constantly in motion. We go to work, we have overflowing inboxes, we've got things that have to be done, we've got deadlines, we've got tests to mark, we've got all sorts of things to do. So we are constantly in motion. Then comes along the new world imperative of innovating, being creative, and now on top of that, we also have to let our thinking fly and soar and unfurl. Okay, so could each pair come and get a ball, please? Now, these are very special balls. I'll tell you about them in a moment. Okay, yes, yeah, that wasn't the... Did you go and sit down? That was not the end of the activity. All right. Does every pair have a ball? Every pair have a ball? Okay. Because this is now the new task. With your pair, you're still going to walk around the room doing your activity, your day-to-day, everyday stuff, and now you're also going to throw the balls to each other, not to your pair, not to the person on the other end of the stick, but to someone on the other side of the room. Now, this is the interesting part. They have to catch it without dropping the stick, okay? Because we can't drop our bundle. Right? We've got this imperative to be creative and to let our thinking fly and unfurl, but at the same time, we've also got to keep everything together. We can't not answer emails and things. Who's got a really good throwing arm? Who's got a really good throwing arm? I'll tell you why, because I haven't, and if I demonstrated, it won't work very well. So, Serge, would you have a go at throwing across to Andrew over there, but just take note of the colour of the ball, right? All right? And what colour is it now? Hold it up, it's pink. So if you throw it hard enough and high enough, the ball will soar, unfurl, and come back in a different colour, which is the metaphor for how we are being required to think in different ways. Change the colour of our thinking, if you like. So, here we go. Let's see how good you are at it. You cannot use the stick as a bat. What you have to do is walk around the room just a minute before you start. That group, can you go to the back of the room? People in the middle, just duck, okay? Go through the middle and just keep in motion. Go. Go. Okay, all right. Over there, walk around the room. Come on, around the room. Keep going, keep going. Find another spot, go to the middle. The sticks have stopped moving, very interesting. Okay, someone dropped their stick. All right, not to worry. You get the picture. Very, very good. Who feels like that sometimes in their life? That there are really amazing demands, and now the additional demand is that we have to also be really, really creative. So it really is a balancing act, and it can be quite demanding, because when we think about the fact that we're so busy, one of the things that gets sacrificed and squeezed out of really busy lives is creative problem solving, because we're not still enough, which is where the ideas come from, which was why I absolutely loved the theme of this conference, because it's about allowing ideas to incubate in the stillness. And I used to tell people that I did some of when I was doing my PhD research, and when I was coming up against a really intractable problem and I couldn't get my head around it, I'd go sleep on it. I'd come up with the answer in my sleep. Most of my, I tell people most of my research was done, with my eyes closed. But it's a joke, but I mean, there's a lot of truth in that. It's because when we stop consciously attending to things, sometimes answers bubble up. So when we meditate, when we're still, when we think about some of those beautiful images that Stephen shared with us this morning as he opened the conference, wasn't that just so moving? It was really lovely. That's where a lot of our great ideas come from. When we're really busy, this is what tends to happen. We fall back on familiar ways of solving problems. We don't look for new ways to solve problems because it takes longer, it takes more effort, takes more resources initially, and we don't have that. We're too busy. So what ends up happening is that we rely on our existing mental schemas. So mental schemas being the cognitive structures that we have that make life a lot easier to manage. Okay, if we had to sift through every little bit of information every time we needed something, that would be untenable. We couldn't work like that. So our wonderful brain has these wonderful models and schemas that we rely on in order to help us move through the world quickly and effectively, which is fantastic. We need them. But the downside is that we can become trapped in established ways of doing things and not be prepared to look at alternatives because it takes too much effort. And I think one of the things that really came out of Andrew's talk for me was his call for how we need to transform the classroom. And part of the reason why it's not happening fast enough is because we're so busy. We don't get that space to be able to really rethink and reinvent things from the ground up. The downside of this is that we end up in a mental rut, right? Now, when we're in mental ruts, we are literally putting handcuffs on our thinking potential, right? How can you tell if someone's in a mental rut? Okay. And when we're in a mental rut, this is what we're doing to our potential to solve problems creatively, to see things differently. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this or not, but can I have 2 volunteers to come out and... No, seriously, come on, I'm up for it. Okay, come on. 2 volunteers to come and shackle me into this. I'll give you the instructions. No one brave enough? Look, no one is going to make any assumptions about anything, all right, if you just volunteer. All right? Thank you. What's your name? Alan. All right, Alan, you come on this side. Robin, you come onto this side. And just while people are doing this, and I'll get Alan to do this now. Now, Alan, if you can put that on nice and tight so no one's going to accuse me of cheating, all right? And Robin, are you happy to no, that's fine. I still have movement in my hand. That's good. And then if on this side, Robin, you can shackle me in there, nice and tight. Nice and tight. No one's going to accuse me of cheating here. No, I can probably get my wrist out without that. No, come on, nice and tight, Robin. Okay, there we go. And actually, Alan, that's a bit loose too. Right, you were being so concerned about my well-being that you've just letting me get away with it. So there you go, nice and tight. Okay, now while people are doing this, who's seen any of those? Thank you very much, Alan and Robin. You may take a seat. Thank you. Do you want to swallow it? No. Please don't. Okay, so let's just see how we go with this. Bit of the spur of the moment thing. So, who has ever seen anyone or heard anyone say things like this? I'm not meaning that to actually look like anyone you might know, so all references to persons real or deceased not intended. But this is how you tell that people are in mental ruts, that they're not wanting to do something differently. This is how you tell when people have got handcuffs on their thinking potential. It's always been like that. That's why we still have classrooms looking like 1986. This is the way we've always done it. We tried that already. We don't have time to experiment with anything new. What's another favourite one that you've heard? Come on, we've all heard these, haven't we? We've all heard these kinds of sayings somewhere along the line, right? So what else have you heard? Are you going to tweet this? Okay, all right. My husband will say, I thought you were going to a conference today. Yeah. All right, so we had someone over here saying something.
Before you arrived, before you came.
Yes, I know what you mean. Right, this before you, this is how it always has been. We ain't changing it for you. What else?
Our context is different.
Exactly, yes. This is interesting. Yes?
It's not in the budget.
Oh, favourite one. No budget for it. Yes. What else?
You're new, you're up.
That's very much like the one that you just said, absolutely. Yeah. Any others? What was that? I didn't hear all of that. Historical, yes. All right, in other words, it's always been done this way. All right, enough of that. Ah, there we go. Right. Phew. So, what we want is to actually be able to do that with our thinking potential so that we can be innovative. Yes? Yeah? That's the ball unfurling. So, let me just share with you a few pointers on how we can do that. And I'll be unpacking some of this a little bit later on this afternoon. But the very first thing on how we address that and how we tap into our creativity so that we can lead to innovation, because we don't get innovation without first having a creative idea, and innovation is the implementation of that, is to heed the very timely advice of this conference, which is to dare to be still, number one. And it's wonderful, the ideas that will bubble up and take root and flourish in that stillness. In fact, I think there might be a whole new wave of this coming, because did anyone happen to see the article in The Australian last week? That was this one. Keeping still is a learning experience. This was last Friday. And as soon as I saw it, I rang Robin up and I said, Robin, have you seen what's in The Australian? Hey, you are so ahead of the crowd. You're already there. You thought of this a year ago. So if you haven't seen it and you want it, and if you can't find it, email me, I'll send it to you. Okay, so that's definitely something that we can do. We can be still. We can tap into that creativity that comes from the stillness. Now, the other thing that we can do is also to become really aware of our creative capacities. Now, when I was just a beginning teacher, in the very first year that I was in the school, the principal put the whole staff through the Myers-Briggs indicator. Who else has done Myers-Briggs here? Yeah, absolutely. And I can honestly say that it was a real eye-opener for me, because I was just very young. I hadn't done anything like that, no psychometric testing. I didn't really understand all of that. And it was like the lights just went on, the shades went up, and I had this tremendous insight into my own behaviour patterns, why I behaved that way, the reasons why I interacted with other people that way, why other people behaved. And it was really, really interesting and provided a tremendous amount of insight. So those kinds of psychometric tools are useful. Well, I just want to let you know that there is now a very recent psychometric tool that's just come into use, public use globally, and it's called Me Too Creativity. It's a bit of a play on E = MC squared, okay? It was developed by two researchers at Manchester Business School, so it's been very rigorously tested, but it actually helps people to identify their creative capacities, where their strengths are, how they can develop other aspects of their creativity. And there's a handout there just on your tables because, yes, you should all have a handout there about it. It looks like, can someone just hold theirs up so everyone can see? Yeah. So if you could just refer to those. Now, it's fairly hot off the press, and I'm one of the first people in Australia to be accredited with using it. And when I did it, I was just wonderfully impressed by the rigour of the tool and its capacity to develop creative thinking and problem solving and creativity in general. So it's used both as a diagnostic as well as a developmental tool. And I share that with you because if anyone here is interested in talking about how that could be used, please get in touch with me. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. And one is via that feedback sheet that you also have next to that sheet where you just picked up the MC squared, the Me Too tool. So see that feedback sheet. If you would like information about that tool, can you just circle yes? And I'll be in touch with you. Now, the other thing is that I'd also like to share with you an ebook that I have called Success Through the Art of Creative Thinking, which is currently in production but will be out fairly soon. And if you would like to have that just as a gift from me, just please fill out that feedback sheet and put it on the table where I've got some books for sale. So I've been talking about innovation, and one of the chapters in the Roadmap to Success book that I've got out on the table there is called Essential Innovation. And it lays out a whole framework for innovating within an organisation. There's also another book there called Strategies for 24/7 Creativity, which goes into much more detail about this model that I'm about to share with you, the StrateGEE model for creative thinking. Because the third thing that we can do to help our creativity along is to use some tools that make it easy. So this is one of the things that I came up with as part of my PhD research. It was a framework for helping people to be able to dive in quickly into the process of creative problem solving. So it conceptualizes it in this way. Imagine that, well, we have this huge database of knowledge and understanding that represents everything that we can do, everything we know. So you can see why it's really useful to have a broad and very eclectic mix of information in this brain. And we saw that from Chris. Who is so versatile. So starting with our enormous mental database, we can build on that by identifying different kinds of thinking that help us to do different kinds of things. So for a start, the notion of generation. That's one category of thought, coming up with new ideas, exploring and developing them, being able to evaluate them by refining and critiquing outcomes as they come up, and being able to think strategically, see the big picture view, reflect on progress. So sometimes it's called cognition, metacognition, thinking about thinking, executive control. Okay, so that's the overarching tool. The real value of it comes from this, which is that within each category, I've identified different kinds of thought actions which can help and assist people to move through the problem-solving process, the creative thinking and creative problem-solving process. Now, each of these thought actions has a question associated with it to prompt people into deeper thinking or into that particular kind of thinking. And you have that on your table. So can you all just pick up, it's a coloured sheet. Yes, that one, and there's two versions of it. There's a simple version and an extended version. So that if you want to take it back and use it with your primary school students or with your high school students, you've got different versions of the tool there that will be adaptable to different contexts. Now, this is the tool that we're going to be unpacking more this afternoon and looking at how you can actually use it, whether you are going to solve a school-wide issue or whether you just want to use it in a classroom as an energizer, or how you can adapt some of it to use with particular assignments. So we'll unpack that this afternoon and look at that in more detail. So that's another reason why I wanted to share that with you, because it takes the sting out of that busyness that I was talking about before. when we're really busy, anything that we can use to help us achieve creative problem solving quickly, easily, is very useful. And this is one of those things. So the other thing that this does, of course, is to help us come up with lots of bright ideas. Who thinks that they've got lots of bright ideas? Who thinks they haven't got any bright ideas at all? No one. So no one's thinking. Is that what I can assume? So let's just finish off with this. Has everyone got a pen? Can you just get your pen and give me your index finger? Show me your index finger, like this, please. Right? Can you draw a light bulb on the tip of your index finger now? Right? So it doesn't have to be too swanky. You can have some sort of like rays going off it. Depends on how big your index finger is. All right? So draw a light bulb on the tip of your index finger. Right. You all done that? Yes? Who's still drawing? Okay. All right. If you have finished drawing your light bulb, can you hold your finger up and show me? Okay. Now, this is what you're going to do. You are going to put, in a moment, when I say, that finger on your head and say, I am full of bright ideas. Go. All right, that was pretty easy. The next step, this goes with the whole collaboration thing. You, as we go out to lunch, are going to put your finger on the head of at least 3 other people, when I tell you, not yet, and say, you are full of bright ideas, and then we're just going to go to lunch on a high, and I'm going to be at that table if you want to buy some books. Ready? Go. You are full of bright ideas. Another person, another person, another person. Yes.